Hi, Mary here, educational psychologist, creator of Holistic Circles. Here is the piece I wrote on the EdSci blog and the link should you want to have a look at it. I'm based in Bristol in the UK, and this presentation is to sit alongside the blog just to give you a bit more of a flavour of what it's all about. So as an educational psychologist, I write a lot of reports, quite often after I have worked with a child or young person, and these reports are for many audiences and for different purposes. So I'll often be writing to the young person themselves. Even if I'm not doing that directly, I'm thinking that maybe at some point in the future, that child or young person will read the report that I've written about them. So I've got them in mind about what would it be like to read, how will they understand it. I also have their family in mind because they are likely to be accessing the report at the time of I'm writing it, and I want to ensure they can understand and again access it, but that it makes sense and is purposeful with what we had planned. I'll also have other professionals in mind, maybe teachers, other professionals that might be involved with a child or young person, and they'll each be taking something slightly different from the report. So there's one report that serves many different audiences and sometimes different purposes as well. And so it's quite important to me that these are short, accessible, and I find Holistic Circles a helpful way of bringing together what can sometimes be quite complicated situations. So what are they? They're a visual, collaborative process that promotes having a review of how things are going later down the time. So it's a snapshot of where we are, what we think's going on, that we can maybe come back to and see using a review in the future. They add clarity, they're accessible, it doesn't rely on a huge amount of language, and it brings together lots of different things that might be happening. The age-old a picture paints 1,000 words, I think, is what sings to Holistic Circles. And also, where could they be used? I use them in conversations, as I've said, to help create that shared understanding of what's going on, that sort of collaboration. I'm thinking this, is that what you're thinking of the situation is? And particularly when we're trying to triangulate what's going on. I'll also put that in my report as a record of what we've spoken about, but I sometimes use them in statutory assessments, those education, health and care needs assessments, as it's a helpful way of bringing together lots of information in a less linear, more sort of holistic view, as it were. So let's go through where I would start. And the first bit is always with the strengths and support network. This is for me the outer circle, and what I'm trying to do here is put a spotlight or sort of a bright beam on things that are going well, but also the strengths. And that might be of the young person, it might be of interventions that are taking place, but also tapping into their support networks. Maybe there's great relationships with certain individuals that I want to highlight, sometimes the lunchtime member of staff or somebody in the community, so that we can build on what's going well. So just taking that more sort of solution focused thinking about building on what's working. I'll then take a moment to consider, is there anything as of a need or a diagnosis that is overarching everything that I'm looking at? It's at this point that I'll often consider what happened during COVID. That was a worldwide event. It impacted everybody in some ways more so than others, and it's helpful to capture what went on. So it'll often be something I ask about, but I also think it's important to record. I'll also think about maybe if there's any sort of physical needs that might need to be capturing. Again, this is the way I think about it. You might choose to think about it differently. This isn't you must do it this way. This is more the way that I tend to think about it. I don't always have this circle. I'll always have the strength circle, but I don't always have this one. It depends on the young person that I'm working with. Then I think about the 4 areas of need as detailed in the Code of Practice. And do I need to have each of them? I've created this PowerPoint so that the circles are transparent, so you can see them overlapping. That becomes important, as you'll realise. The naming of the circles I have stuck here with the names given in the Code of Practice. Sometimes I'll adjust them and change them to reflect the language that's been used in school, or maybe to capture the nuance of as an area as I see fit with whoever I'm working with. So I only use circles that represent areas that are meaningful to the child or young person. If there isn't a need or a strength in an area, I don't tend to cover it. Sometimes I put it in there as a strength, but quite often I might just leave it out completely. So I try and synthesize it so we're only focusing on what's particularly important and what the focus of the involvement is overall. Size matters. The size of the circle indicates need. So a big circle, a bigger area of need, a smaller circle is a smaller area of need. And then the overlap, that's the interaction of needs. And I think that's sometimes the bit that's most helpful with this presentation, in the sense that quite often, if we talk about one area of need, it impacts on the others. We as humans aren't sort of linear, we're all very sort of overlapping, and the beauty of holistic circles is it allows that complexity to be shared. So I might ask questions about, do you think this is the biggest area of need, which helps me with the size? And then is this area of need separate to others? So if we didn't have all the other needs, would this area still have a need? In which case, if it would, it maybe sits outside. If it's not, maybe it sits and nests within the other areas. So the questioning that goes around it is, of course, just as important as the actual visual that you end up with. Then I put them all together on one document, one image. Again, I tend to use PowerPoint for this. What I put in this top left hand side is usually the area that has the biggest area of need. That's mostly because in English we read from left to right, so our eyes tend to go there, but again you can choose to do as you wish. Sometimes I might only have one area of need on this side because it's quite long and complex, and all the others might sit over to the other side. Sometimes this can be quite busy, so the circles need to get smaller to allow space around the outside. And this is just an overview of a young person that I have been working with, and it's a slightly made up, it's a mashed together of several. Obviously it is a pseudonym as well, but just pause the video if you want, just to have a little overview. I've included life experiences. There was a concern around attendance, and so capturing that actually attendance at nursery was going well felt important with the whole sort of picture. And as you can see in the middle, nested in there, are the physical and self-help skills that are impacted by other two main areas of need, which was language and communication and cognition and learning. And that if those needs weren't there, there probably wouldn't be difficulties with them helping themselves. So you can see that what I'm trying to do here is capture need as well as strengths, so that where possible, I'm capturing what they're able to do as well as the bits that they're struggling with. And then this forms an overview that we can come back to maybe in 6 months' time, once we've tried some interventions and working on a particular area, and we can see if things have moved. And that is it in a nutshell. So I suggest, if you're interested, to go and read the blog on the EdSci blog. Do read and comment if you want to there. That's a public forum to comment and would be helpful for other people potentially using it. If you're interested in getting in touch, there's my name and email address. If you can just put holistic circles into the subject title, that'll allow me to kind of collate what's going on there. And remember, it's a flexible model. This is just my interpretation and what I do. Love to hear your views, and use and apply it in any way that you think helpful. Thank you.